Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it in the age of ageism, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Today, we are speaking with Jeff Harry. Jeff Harry, aka Doctor of Mischief, positive psychology play coach, and international play speaker, has been named one of the top 100 HR influencers of 2020. Jeff works with companies such as Google, Microsoft, and the NFL, helping their people tap into their true selves to feel their happiest and most fulfilled, all by playing. After spending 15 years with Play-Well Teknologies, leading as the VP of Marketing and Fun, and introducing over 1 million kids to Lego-inspired STEM education, Jeff learned that it's when we let go of our serious grown-up facade and just play that the real magic happens. Jeff now helps others embrace their own nerdy genius, giving them the power to make a difference and change lives. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us on Fresh Blood. I'm excited to learn more about your story. Could you tell us a little more about your path and how you ended up developing your company, Rediscover Your Play?
Sure. That was an awesome intro, by the way. Oh, that was awesome. Oh, I'm feeling all excited right now. Let's go. Yes. Do you remember the movie Big with Tom Hanks?
Love, yes.
Right. So I saw him dancing on a piano, and then he got offered a job in the toy industry, to play with toys for a living. And I went home that day and I started writing toy companies. And I just didn't stop writing them. And I remember, they never wrote me back, or they would write me these boring template emails. I don't even think they knew that I was a kid, because I was spamming before spam was a thing. I would send so many.
How old were you? Because I love this.
I was 10. I was
oh my goodness,
10 years old, and then 11 and 12 and 13. And I just kept sending them on my word processor. It was right after the typewriter. It was the word processor, right? And then I remember I got a letter when I was 16 by, I believe, Cap Toys, that told me to go into mechanical engineering. That company went out of business subsequently, so I should have never listened to them. But I went into mechanical engineering because of them. I graduated, and then I got in the toy industry. I got in my dream industry. And I don't know if you've ever gotten what you've always wanted and then been so disappointed when you get there. But I was in the cubicle, they have the padded walls in the cubicle. I'm like, why are they padded? I don't understand.
I was going to say, no, why were you disappointed? Yes. Okay.
What is this? There's no fun. There's no play. There's no high fives. There are no kids. There are no toys. Where are the toys? This is a toy company. I felt like they could have been selling microwaves or socks for all that. So I remember leaving New York, moving to the Bay Area, piddling around for a little bit, not knowing what to do with my life, reading Poe Bronson books and stuff like that, and doing some Tony Robbins or whatever I needed to just figure it out. And then I bumped into this organization that was teaching kids engineering with Lego, but there were only 7 people there, and they were paying $150 a week. It was like a joke of job. It was just these people were just playing for a living. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I know it pays nothing, but I just want to do that. So I committed to helping them out, and I stayed there for 15 years. And we built the largest Lego-inspired STEM organization in the US. And we did it all by playing. We had no business plan. We picked cities because we thought they were fun. We picked people because we thought they were fun. We made mistakes all the time. We experimented all the time. We had no idea what we were doing. We just said yes to everything. And then speaking of saying yes, we're in Silicon Valley, right? So Facebook, Adobe, Google, all these companies start to pay attention to us, and they're like, hey, do you do team building events? And we're like, of course we do, even though we didn't. We just said yes anyway. And And then for the next like 8 to 10 years, I was running team building events for some of the top tech companies. And they would always speak about disruption, agile, innovation, all these buzzwords. But in my opinion, I felt like they had not created a safe space for people to play and actually take risks. So I created Rediscover Your Play to address bigger issues, combining positive psychology and play to address dealing with toxicity at work, dealing with office politics. How do you talk about race at work? How do you have hard conversations? How do you deal with, your inner critic? How do you get your staff in flow? All these issues that are like eggshell issues that people tiptoe around at work. And I was like, let's have those hard conversations and use positive psychology and play to do it.
So wonderful. I can't even imagine the impact that doing this has on these organizations. Now, I have so many questions. I'm trying to decide where to go from there. Can you share with us an example of a transformative time you had with another company by introducing this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll even share what a transformative time at a conference. So my friend Barry Ware and I mean, talk about play. We made up this workshop while having, breakfast burritos in San Diego, and we thought it was just a joke at the time. The name of the workshop is called Dealing with A-Holes at Work Through Play. That is our toxicity workshop, right? And then we applied to all these conferences and we were like, no one's ever going to say yes. And then he told me, he's like, hey, we got into Inbound. And I was like, what's an Inbound? And he's like, it's the largest marketing conference like in the country, maybe the whole world. And I was like, oh gosh, now we have to actually like create this. So then we created it, right? And then we started doing it, and then we got into South by Southwest. But what brought us right before COVID hit, it brought us to Australia, right? And we were at Australia's Pause Fest, which is, I guess, their South by Southwest conference. And we're running this workshop, for quite a few people. And then, some people started crying in the room. And we were like, oh, what's happening? And they had been laughing just a minute ago, and now they were crying. And part of the reason why was because they left their jobs because of a toxic person, and they thought they were alone. And then other people started sharing, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh man, you're running a good workshop when people feel seen, people feel heard, and people feel like they belong, right?
And they feel safe.
Yeah, there was like this magical moment where like, because a lot of toxicity is usually toxic masculinity. So there were a lot of women that were sharing how like they left jobs and it was really hard for them. And then the few guys in the room, because there's always like the ratio, once we ran it was like 100 people in the room and 90 of them were women. But, this time there was a guy in the room and he started crying. I mean, he started being vulnerable, and he was just like, I've left as well. And they were like, whoa, we don't realize this also happens to guys a lot. So it was just this fascinating moment where people were able to be themselves. And frankly, like that's the work I love to do, because people really need that. They need to be seen. They need to be heard.
Oh, completely. And I would imagine that this is even more important right now during this time. What do you feel is I mean, I actually want to ask you about this toxic people. This is very interesting to me, because as a recruiter, this is one of the number one reasons why people are willing to find or be willing to listen to me about a new opportunity is toxic people in their workplace that are causing havoc. And what I found is that the number one thing that makes people happy is 100% the people that they're working with and the environment that they're in. It makes all the difference. So I'm curious, how do you deal with toxic people through play? What would you suggest people for that?
Sure. So this is what your listeners could actually just apply, So I think the first approach is you can't allow that toxic person to run amok, because once you accept that behavior, it changes the culture. You're basically communicating to anyone else that arrives later on, oh, guess what? Everyone has to follow the rules. But this one person, we're going to use the person, we're going to name him Chad, right? Sorry, Chad, but this is, So Chad is, but it doesn't apply to Chad. These rules don't apply to Chad. So you have to, it's all about setting boundaries, right? So here's like a 4-step approach that you can do. So Chad typically, as the toxic person, usually takes up a lot of room at meetings. So the first level, the easiest level to do this is to organize around Chad. So for example, at meetings, if Chad is taking up 60 to 80% of the meeting, you turn to your colleagues like, hey, Samantha, hey, David, listen, I'm going to get your back. You get my back. When Chad is cutting you off, be like, whoa, Chad, we wanted to hear what Samantha had to say. Oh, wait, we wanted to hear what David had to say. We start backing each other up and we start occupying the meeting over the next 3 to 6 months, because this is not going to be a quick fix. None of this is a quick fix, right? Sometimes it takes years to address this issue. So then that's the first thing, is like occupying the space that this person has been taking. The second is like confronting Chad directly, but not attacking his character, but addressing his behavior and the impact that it's having. So you approach Chad, or if you don't feel comfortable, you do it with a colleague and you go, hey, Chad, when you cut off Samantha during the meeting, as well as David, basically what you're communicating to us is that you don't want to hear what we have to say. Is that your intent? I just want to make sure if that was your intent. Just be curious about it, right? Because they might just be like an engineer that just is bad at communicating. And then you have to manage up how they communicate going forward, right? Or they might say something to you like, F you, I'm going to do whatever I want. It's like, okay. And maybe they do that. That's when you have to either speak to the supervisor or the supervisor's supervisor. But again, you're not there to complain. What you're there to do is to point out the impact that it's having. So what's interesting is SHRM did a study recently, October 2019, where they found that $223 billion has been lost due to turnover because of toxic people in just the last 5 years. And this is only Fortune 500 companies, right? And these are the only ones that are willing to admit it. So you could go up to that supervisor and be like, yeah, look, I know Chad is the brilliant jerk. I know he brings in about $1.2 million a year. But as Simon Sinek says, the Navy SEALs never pick the brilliant jerk, regardless of how athletic, brave, amazing they are, because they'll destroy the team. So Chad might have brought in $1.2 million, but he also caused 4 of our staff to quit, which actually costs us X amount of money, $2 million. So guess what? Chad's losing us $800,000 a year to keep him. So even though he's bringing in revenue, this is the impact that he's having. Does Chad represent our values and our mission? And that's worth asking that person over and over again, especially each time Chad triggers or insults another person, right? And after a while, that supervisor is going to get tired of listening to people complaining and being like, yo, okay, maybe I need to address this, right? Again, that happens over time. But then this is and frankly, if that boss supports Chad, then you know for a fact that you shouldn't be there anymore, right? So you're like, okay, those are the values that support this, or I might need to start looking for another job. But the fourth one, and this is the most difficult one, is we have to deal with the inner Chad, the inner a-hole, the inner critic, right? Because there's something about Chad that is triggering you that you actually believe. And even if you leave this company and go to your next company, it's going to show up again. Why do I think I'm an imposter? Why do I think I shouldn't be sharing in work? Why do I think that, that I shouldn't get paid as much as Chad? And once you start to look at it, you're like, wait a minute, that's not true. I should be his boss. Like, I am more knowledgeable, more qualified, all these things. The next time Chad is really rude to you and you're confident, you will just be like, Chad, don't ever disrespect me that way. And when you say that to him in front of David and Samantha and, myself and a bunch of people will be like, oh, look, you stepped up to Chad, and then they'll start getting brave and they'll start stepping up to him. And then all of a sudden, those boundaries we talked about at the beginning start to be set. And then Chad has a choice. He either changes his behavior or he leaves because he can't be himself anymore there.
Oh, I can't tell you how much I love this. This is incredibly powerful on so many levels. And not only can you apply this to your work, you can apply this to toxic people in your family.
Exactly. And with all these things, we have to remember this takes time. This takes years. I was in an organization where it took 4 or 5 years for that person to change their behavior, with all of the complaining, all of the setting boundaries, so like this is not a quick fix sort of thing, but we need to be able to have those hard conversations and set those boundaries if we really want things to change.
And completely. And by the step-by-step process that you just gave, it allows people to really focus on what they can control and act accordingly. And as opposed to just being the victim of what the situation is which many people feel. I mean, let's be real, toxic people hold the people around them victims.
But here's the thing is toxic people also gain power from silence. So the more we're silent, the more powerful they get, if you think about that. So even for listeners that are like, oh, I've tried everything, keep trying, because you not being silent, you actually will empower others to also speak up as well. And if you feel you're the only one speaking up right now, maybe other people don't feel comfortable right now, like, because they might get fired, they might do this. So you have to look again also at where your power dynamics are, and then who is able to also speak up with you.
Mm-hmm. God, yeah, that's very, very true. Very true. Now, I just to back up a little bit, because I'm really curious about how you took this company that was 7 people and making $150 a week into this huge conglomerate, bringing play to millions of kids and really important educational play. I want to thank you for that, because it is pivotal. I have children, and it was a very big deal. So how did embracing this play help you build this thriving business? Can you share with us?
Yeah. So, I think of the Steven Johnson quote, the future is where people are having the most fun. And I think of the companies that are thriving right now, the, TikTok, Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, heck, even if you even look at Amazon, back in the day, like we're talking about 1998, the reason why so many tech heads wanted to go there was because he was solving the most interesting, fascinating problems, right? So people gravitate towards fun. That's where the future is, right? That's where people are doing innovative stuff. And, when I joined it, they had already been doing STEM, but this was 2004 when I joined it. So STEM wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even trendy. It was just, we were just creating a safe space for kids to like be nerdy, where they didn't have to go and do sports, where they could be themselves, where if they loved Lego, they could play. If they loved engineering or building, they could do this. So we were just, we were just innovating. We were just making up, I think that really helped out. And it was always an experiment for us. Like, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't have like quarterly earnings that we need to hit. We just were like, whoa, is it bigger than last year? Sweet. Who wants to go to LA? Awesome. Who wants to go to New York? Awesome. Who wants to go to Idaho? Nah, I don't want to go. Okay, we won't go to Idaho now. We'll go to somewhere else. Like, that's how we did it, and we didn't have any judgment. Like, our boss gave us a lot of freedom because he was figuring out himself. He didn't know how to grow it. And he literally would just be like, hey, pick a city, figure it out, keep your costs down. He empowered us to just like, to play, to just try a bunch of things out. And trust me, we had like we hired a lot of people that, didn't work out, or, we tried curriculums that didn't work out. But because we had the play mindset, which is all about experimentation, where, I define play as any joyful act where you forget about time, where you are fully in the moment, where there is no result, there is no purpose. You don't have anxiety about the future. You don't have regrets about the past. You're just fully in the zone, in the moment. And that's kind of how we did stuff. We just decided at the time, like, hey, let's try this. Why don't we try this? We'll try this school. Why don't we reach out? Like I reached out to companies for like team building stuff, after like a random company, I think Visa came and reached out to us. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to reach out to every freaking tech company. I remember watching a Marvel movie and seeing the VP of Creative Services on the scroll at the end. I'm like, I'm just going to reach out to that person. I'm going to work with that person. And then they got back to me. So it's like, it's just like, it's not that hard, right? I think we psych ourselves out and we're like, well, what's going to be our marketing strategy, or what's going to be this? And I was the VP of marketing, and my main marketing strategy for everyone in their satellite offices in the 30 states that we were in was, what type of marketing you like to do? Like, what do you love to do? What do you enjoy doing? Let's do that. Let's do that type of marketing, right? Let's do what speaks to you. And that's what I say to team leaders now, especially in this like tense moment of like, how do I keep my employees engaged? Why don't you go up to them and ask them, what is the work that you love to do most at this job? Oh, you love to talk to people? Oh, you love to talk to clients? What percentage of time are you currently doing that? 10%? You're only doing it 10% of the time? Is there any way we can increase it to 15 or 20%? Maybe that's 1 to 2 extra hours. By doing that, you communicate to them that you care. You communicate that you see them, right? And then all of a sudden they're doing more of that flow work, the work that gets that where they forget about time. Marcus Buckingham refers to as red thread work, right? Your zone of genius, as Gay Hendricks says. And when they're doing that, it has a ripple effect on all the other work that they do.
I love this. So I'm using everything you've said. I'm using. By the way, I'm just sitting over here grinning while you talk. So it's just so good and applicable onto so many things. Now, you've done a lot. I love how you've grown this company, the company that you're with previously, Play-Well Teknologies, and then now you have your own company, Rediscover Your Play, which is sounds like it's building off a lot of what you learned by going through Play-Well. So, what would you say has been one of your greatest successes to date, and what did you learn from it?
Greatest successes, because usually, well, let me talk about both, right? I think two successes that I think were really interesting is, I got something published in the New York Times. A journalist featured me in the New York Times. How did that happen?
How?
Playing, frankly.
Right.
I remember I was at a conference. At the end of the conference, I had spoken. It was a pretty small conference, maybe only like 200 people, and I'd spoken to most people, but there was this one person that was like really interesting, named Kristen Wong, that I didn't know, and I was like, I want to meet you before. So I went up to her right before, and I was just like, we never got to talk. We never got to connect, but you just seem like a super interesting person. I'd love to learn more. And we got into a conversation, and she happened to be like a freelance writer that works for the New York Times and a bunch of other publications. And she was working on some story, I think, about positive psychology. So I was like, oh, I have a bunch of links that I can send you. So, we just stayed in contact that way, right? And then she followed me up via Instagram, and I did the same. And she saw me posting a lot of stuff about play. So, and it just so happened that she was, going to write an article about play. Then she reached out to me. And what was funny was I interviewed for the article back in October of 2019. I believe it was around that time. And then the pandemic hit, and then it wasn't going to get published. And I was just like, oh, well, I guess, and then all of a sudden she reached out to me again, and she goes, hey, actually, this play is even more important now. Let's redo the interview and let's try more things. And then the article got published, and I didn't even know when it got published. My friend Antoine had to tell me, like, yo, do you know the New York Times? I'm like, oh my gosh. But again, it wasn't like me being fixated on results, right? Like adults get so fixated on planning in a linear way. And if you look back at your life, nothing has been linear. So why are you planning in such a linear way, right? And I say this all the time, expectations are the thief of joy. And when you get so fixated on results, right? Like so many adults do this, they put themselves through such suffering. If you think of 2020, the reason why 2020 was so painful for a lot of people is they had visions of what it was going to be. Double my business, get married, travel the world. It didn't happen, right? And instead of us giving ourselves a certain level of compassion to mourn what didn't happen. We do this in our workshop, my friend Lauren Yee and I, where we had people write down what they couldn't do in 2020, sit there and mourn it for a little bit, and then fold up that piece of paper into a paper airplane and let it go. Because we were like, look, you can't create anything. Heck, even in the last 13 days of 2020, you could create something awesome.
Yes, you can.
Shift your entire 2020. If you're simply willing to let go of what couldn't be so that you can create what is or what could be, right? So, so like that was the process with the New York Times, right? And then another one that I'm actually pretty proud of, and I haven't actually counted recently, but I've done 87 podcasts in the last 7 months.
That's amazing.
And why? Why did I do that? I don't know. It seemed fun. I was asking myself, what type of marketing do I want to do? And I was like, yeah, I know the standard marketing I can always do, and I'll do that as well. But I was like, what do I love to do? I love to talk to people. Okay, well then let's just do podcasts, and we'll just stop doing them when we don't feel like doing them anymore. And then I applied to like 400 podcasts probably, and like I've now done 87 of them. So it's like, sweet, this is super fun, so like, again, I didn't plan a lot of this stuff. I just did it because it interested me. I followed my curiosity, and then it took me to an adventurous place.
Oh, I love it. That's so great. And you know what? It is so fun. I mean, I'm having fun. So this you're you're right. I mean, it's for your marketing. You get to go have conversations with a lot of different people and, and spread your message. What a great way to do that.
Right. Look how we met, right? We just hopped onto this random matchmaker.fm podcast like thing. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we have breakout groups. And I was like, sweet, I don't want to listen to lectures right now. Let me just hang out in these breakout groups and meet cool people.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden your horizons are spread and you have new friends. So now let's flip it though. What about a time that you either failed or was a very big challenge or obstacle and you had to overcome? What you learned from it?
I think of when I invested in a cafe. When as soon as I say invested in a cafe, any of your listeners are like, ooh, that's a bad idea. You're right. You're right. How come you weren't there to tell me that? No, I mean, so many people told me that. And I was like, no, this is going to be a great idea. Like, let me invest 6 figures into a cafe even though I don't know how to run a cafe, but I did it because, I was doing with friends of mine, and we had this vision of also making it a nonprofit space, and, Robinhood, and, using some of the money to give to other people, and, it didn't work out, and it failed miserably, right? Partly due to a toxic person. And when it ended, what was so interesting was, I had a lot of debts, and then I paid those debts off, and then when I paid the debts off, then I was like, oh, I thought it would have crushed me. I thought it would have crushed my soul. But then I was like, you know what? It didn't. So now I can do anything. That's when I actually started to build the team building and the special events wing of, my former organization, because I was just like, why not? I'm just going to apply to everything. I'm just going to come up with crazy ideas. And when people are like, hey, have you ever done that before? Be like, no, but we can figure it out, And I was able to build a whole special events and team building wing, of the organization I was a part of. And I was like, whoa, this is not that hard. It just made me really bold. And I feel like I was just emailing some people from IDEO, who does amazing things around play, Michelle, and then I think Jenny Goldstein from IDEO. But the founder of IDEO, David Kelly, would always say, fail faster, succeed sooner. And we would tell our students all the time that fail faster, succeed sooner, especially every time they failed, and it created a psychologically safe space for people to take risks. I remember talking to a former colleague of mine who was like a NASA engineer, and she's like, we fail on purpose. Like she was working on the rover that was going to land on Mars. She's like, we want it to fail. We want it to fail in so many ways, so that by the time it gets to Mars, we will have already known all of the ways that it could fail, right? Like I think in the society, we're so scared of embracing failure. And the people that thrived in 2020 were the people that were willing to take risks and try new things, like start a podcast and, create videos and do crazy things like that, or start a business. And are willing to fail the most. The people that are willing to fail the most are the ones that are probably going to be most successful.
100%. Because the only way to get to success is to keep trying. And eventually, if you keep trying, eventually you're going to fail. You just have to get up and keep going. That's all. What do you believe is key to continued success in life?
As my business mentor, Stephen Worley, always tells me, is like, don't you want to get paid to be you? Like that's the goal. I want to be paid to be myself. Like when you think of people that you like respect, like the Brene Browns or Simon Sinek or Sean Aker or whatever TED Talk person you like, that you admire, they're just being themselves, and you're like, man, that's great. I want to do that. So that's the goal right now, right? And that might be the goal for the rest of my life. I have a mantra that I say to myself a lot, which actually really works because it creates patterns in your brain as you're saying this mantra over and over again. you know um and part of my mantra is I embrace my creator self, because I'm always about creating. I embrace my creator self, you know and focus on helping millions of people to rediscover who they are through play. And like that's the goal. Like I just like play. I really do believe, and this is why I'm on so many podcasts, I really do believe play, which a lot of adults have forgotten how to do, to tap back into that inner child, is where all your answers are. They've been there the whole time. And it's funny that we constantly are like reading or consuming or taking classes or courses, or one more degree or something like that. And it's just like, man, you have all the answers that you need. And you simply need to play enough in order to figure them out, you know? And if any advice that I'm telling you today resonates with you, the only reason it resonates with you is because you've already told yourself this advice. I'm just reminding you of something you already know about yourself.
It's remembering. It's like a tuning fork. Everything you're saying it's like little tuning forks going off inside. Now, can you use play to help you get through difficult times, to get over struggles?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, play is what helped. Think about it. Play is what helped many people get through struggles during 2020. The amount of people that were playing video games as a way to connect with one another, the amount of people if you think about all of the entertainment we've been watching, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, what are we watching? What are we watching? We're watching people playing. That's what we're watching. They're acting, they're playing. Play is what's saving us right now, right? Play is what, Dr. Stuart Brown speaks about how, play is as important as eating, sleeping, and love, right? And the opposite of play is depression. So if you think about it, like people that are so fixated on one result that has to happen this way, they are operating from a fixed mindset. But when you're in a growth oriented mindset, you're going to be able to adapt to the fact that now we're doing stuff virtually. Any organization that wants to get back to normal needs to realize their normal's not coming back. And the new normal, they're going to have to adapt to it. Maybe some of their staff are not going to want to go back to work. Maybe their staff are going to be like, I want to work from home. I'm more productive at home. And when you told me I couldn't work from home because I wouldn't be productive, I've just proven to you that that's not true. So like, what are you going to do as like a company now to like embrace this new normal so that your company can actually thrive during this time? But this again, about embracing uncertainty, is knowing that you never really were in control. And frankly, if 2020 taught us anything, nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody. We're all figuring it out as we go along. So being that nobody knows what they're doing, why are we listening to experts, especially experts that are trying to give us advice around the pandemic? I always want to go up to those experts and be like, oh, were you here in 1918? Because if you weren't, you need to just shut up right now. Because you don't know. None of us know. And being that none of us know, that means you're the expert of yourself, which can be really empowering, but also super scary.
No, you're right on both ends. And it can be scary if you feel a little lost in yourself. And that's when, and a lot of people do feel a little lost. Let's be real. A lot of people don't spend the time to self-evaluate, to feel strong in their own purpose, in their own skin. And there are countless people in the second half of their lives right now who probably have not gotten in touch with their purpose. And I noticed that you mentioned that you can use play to get in touch with your purpose. And I'm wondering how you do that. What advice would you give people right now who are trying to figure out what their purpose is, what their why is?
Sure. So I have 3 great techniques you can do. One of them we do in our Your Future is Where Your Fun Is workshop. This is the easiest one. You look at what did you love to do as a kid, right? So I run this with my colleague, Lauren Yee. and she loved playing sardines, which was reverse hide and seek, where one person hides and then everyone looks for that person. If another person finds that person, they hide with them, and then they all pack in like sardines. It's amazing. If you run it with adults, it's amazing, especially if everyone's a little tipsy and it's just like, where's everybody? And there's like 8 people being like, be quiet, don't say anything.
Post-pandemic, I'm making that happen.
Post-pandemic. No, not right now. Social distancing. So, but in that, I was like, well, what do you love about it? And she goes, I love the creativity. I love the collaboration. I love the connection of it. So those are her play values. So identifying something that you love to do as a kid and breaking down why. Why did I love doing that? Oh, that's so interesting. Like, for example, like, what did you love to do as a kid?
Oh, what did I love to do as a kid? I loved to dance around my room. I loved playing with my dolls. I loved to read. I loved organizing my friends to do little events, and I'd make them do dances, and I'd make them do plays.
So let's pick that one, right? You love to make events with your friends and get them to dance. Why did you love doing it? Like, what was it about that you enjoyed? Like the creativity, what was
creating something? I've always loved creating something.
Okay. And then what else?
Creating fun. I mean, you know what, right? We're talking about creating fun and creating play, creating joy together with other people. I love that.
So I love that. So what I'm hearing is it was all about you creating something out of nothing. I'm also hearing that you love like the connection part of it, like creating bonds with each other. Anything else?
It was fun creatively, pick a song and create a dance to it, or pick a result that you wanted from your parents and then create a play around it to try to get them to agree.
The problem solving of it, right? So then I would then challenge you to be like, oh, so I'm hearing creating, creativity, problem solving, connection. So what type of work or even hobbies do you do now that have that?
Oh, actually quite a bit. Quite a bit. I do a lot of the organizing with my friends and coming up with fun, creative ideas to keep us all together and continuously have amazing memories in our lives. I've also done a lot of different auctions and
Oh, that's so good. Because then I can like feel the deliciousness of that, right? And it's just like anytime you're feeling bad, start to create something, right? Also, this podcast is a perfect example, right? You created something that builds connection, that, that also you had a little bit of problem solving to even figure this out, right? And there's also just the creativity of it, right? And giving people a platform to speak. So that's just one. Another one that I tell people that they can do is, and I learned this from my play mentor, Gwen Gordon, is a lot of times you can't play until you soothe yourself. Like if you have a lot of anxiety, if you have a lot of anger, you're going through a lot of stuff, it's hard. It's really hard to play. And you actually adopt your nervous system from the person that took care of you the most. So if they had a hard time soothing themselves, maybe you will too. So you have to like really look at that and then be like, okay, so what calms me down? What calms me down is like when I'm in the shower, I have my best ideas in the shower. Other people walk, and they have their best ideas. Other people do morning pages. Other people do some other crazy, like dancing, and then that gets them into some sort of flow. So the first thing would be to soothe yourself. And then once you do that, I challenge people to get bored, which is really interesting, a play person saying this. But if you think about when you were a kid, your best ideas came when you were bored. Also your most dangerous ideas, but your best ideas. And what I mean by being bored in this day and age is stop binge watching Netflix, stop looking at social media. And I'm not talking about forever. I'm talking about 1 to 2 hours. And if you're like, well, I don't have enough time to do that, look at your phone because you average about 5 hours on your phone. So you definitely have time, 1 to 2 hours where you're not being embedded with information, because we get more information in a day than people got in 1950s in an entire year. And all of that information is telling you you're not enough. It's telling you, that you should do other things, that you should buy more stuff. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm consuming a lot, I don't want to create because I think all the ideas are out in the world. So I'm like, oh, well, there's nothing for me to do now. But when you're able to block that out and get bored, all of a sudden you're starting to strengthen that muscle of your intuition and listening to that inner child. And that's when that inner child appears out of nowhere and starts to whisper crazy ideas to you. And you know they're going to be good because they both excite you and kind of scare you, because they're ideas like start a podcast, create a video, email that person you've been putting off for 6 months, do that thing that you're like scared and excited to do. And you just follow that curiosity and you just see where that takes you, because it's going to take you into a really magical place. And then my last tip, and this is the one that where if you're trying to come up with a new idea or a new name, right?
Yeah. I am.
This one is one of my most enjoyable ones I do with my clients. And this is how I got the name of my company, Rediscover Your Play. You reach out to 3 to 5 of your closest friends, ideally more than 3, right? And you're going to ask them these 2 questions. What value do I bring to your life? Because I think a lot of times we don't know the value we do. Or what do we do? What do I do for you, as a friend?
I have no idea.
So it's fascinating, right? You're like, have no idea. So just be interested, like, what value do I bring to your life? Why are we friends? Like, what do I do for you? How do I make your life better? So what value do I bring to your life is the first question. And then the second question is like, when have you seen me most alive? And this is based off the Howard Thurman quote, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is for more people to come alive. So another way of asking, when have you seen me come most alive, is like, when have you seen me most present, most engaged, most playful, most myself, right? So the 2 questions again are, what value do I bring to your life? And when have you seen me most alive? And when you get back answers from 3 to 5 people, and I'm recommending call people and listen and write down these notes and write it all down. And you can also put this on your social media too, if you want to get those answers as well. But you really actually want to hear the words from your closest friends. Not only is it going to give you this influx of like love and dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and endorphins, right? But it's going to give you all these ideas on how you could play more. And for me, what happened was someone was like, yeah, you helped me rediscover, a part of myself, like my inner child. And someone else was like, yeah, you give me permission to play, and someone else was like, yeah, help me find my curiosity. And I was like, wait, what about rediscover your play? And they were like, yes, that's it. Right. So then now you have all of these ideas from both you being bored, from you looking at your play values and getting influx of ideas from your friends, and then you can go to those same friends and you can do this in a fun way, a tipsy storm, where you have you get a little tipsy over Zoom. Maybe that's alcohol, maybe that's chocolate, maybe that's ice cream, maybe that's something else. It's up to you, right?
Whatever. Yeah.
And you brainstorm with them, like, how can I play more now that I have all these ideas? And then you write down all of the suggestions they have on a whiteboard, and then that night you go to sleep, you get over your hangover, you come back in the morning, you look at that list and you circle the thing that resonates with you most, and you start there, and you have your friends help you to pursue more play.
Oh, it's beautiful. I am absolutely doing this, and I'm excited to do it. There will be a change coming. So, and I will contribute the change to you, Jeff Harry. So now, what about are there any specific habits that you have that have helped you be successful in life?
Yeah. I mean, recently, well, they're 2, right? Elizabeth Gilbert says this quote, personal transformation doesn't happen until you get tired of your own like BS, right? And what was the BS that I was telling myself back in March? I didn't have time to make videos. Like I just, I sound weird on videos. Oh my gosh, it's just so, I just don't have time. And then quarantine hit, and it was just like, guess what? You have all the time in the world. And now I make a video a day. I make a TikTok to start my day most days.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah,
interesting.
And it has no ROI value, right? It's not making me any money, but it's just something that I love to do. I just want to make them. And what happens is, from a positive psychology standpoint, what this does is it positively primes my brain to then look at the day as play. And then my friend Desiree, who I was just speaking to yesterday about this, she taught me this really interesting question that can change your entire day, where you just ask yourself, how can it get any better than this? And you ask that with curiosity, not with yearning, but with curiosity. So, let me just go through today, right? I made two videos, one based off of a 10-year-old's poem. That was so much fun. How can it get any better than this? After that, I hopped on a play workshop with my friend Humaira that was running an embodiment workshop. And I ran it with her, and it was amazing. And all these people were inspired from all over the world. How can it get any better than this? Now, Jolie and I are having this awesome conversation on her podcast. How can it get any better than this? Later on, I'm creating a video with my friend Gary where we're going to eat the hottest chip possible, and see if we can survive. And we're going to film it, and then we're going to make a video out of it. How can it get any better than this? So like you start stacking all these positive priming moments, and then that totally changes your day. Now, the flip side of that is when someone says they have a bad day, I always challenge them. Did you have a bad day, or did you have a bad moment? Because thoughts usually last between only 9 seconds and 90 seconds. Did you have a bad moment, and did you ruminate about that bad moment and then prime your mind to look for more bad moments throughout the day? And by simply shifting it back over and asking the question, how can it get any better than this? With curiosity and gratitude, you could change your entire day and potentially change your entire life.
Oh, that's big right there. Yes, you're powerful, and you're absolutely right. That is what we do. We have a bad moment and it primes us, and we go down that little slide. But if we bring awareness to that moment, we can reverse it.
Right. And your brain is designed that way. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up. It has a negativity bias. It's always looking out for dangers. That's what the inner critic's job is to do. But we have to fight that and be more aware of when we get down into the negative spiral, and be aware of it. Just catch yourself and then have compassion for yourself around it.
Exactly. Now, this has been absolutely wonderful. I have enjoyed every minute. Before we start wrapping up here, I want to see if there's any best advice that you might give somebody who is struggling right now, or trying to figure out the next step, or just trying to get closer to their own success. Is there one big piece of advice that you would offer to people to help them to get closer to their own success?
Yes. And as part of it, I'll also goodwill hunt your listeners as part of this. But, being that, a lot of your listeners are like in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, that's my age. I'm 42. I think we need to know that how much of a badass we are and how much we've already learned. And it's fascinating that this culture celebrates like 30 under 30 and Forbes 40 under 40. And like, why are we not celebrating people, above 50, right? Or someone that started their, remember Smirnoff started his company, his vodka company at 70. Okay. Morgan Freeman's best work didn't come until he was in his 50s and 60s. Like, why don't we just realize all that we have, all of the experience that we have, and all of the impact that we still can do, instead of believing that it's up to the 20 or 30-year-olds, that are going to run the society. It's like, what are you talking about? They don't know what they're doing. And you can clearly tell when they create organizations like WeWork, and Tom Shoes or whatever it is. And you're just like, this is not helping the world. You're just making another app and you want to feel better about yourself. So I think that's the first thing of we are badasses. We need to recognize the awesome stuff that we've done, right? One technique I just saw someone do that I thought was really amazing at a workshop was look back at your 2020 and look at all the things that you accomplished, not just accomplished from a status standpoint, but also just all of the connections you made, how you were able to adapt to this crazy time. Look back at all of your emails, all your Instagram posts, all that, and just be amazed by what you were able to pull off, and also that you're still here. Just give yourself credit for the fact that you're still here. So that would be the first thing. But then the goodwill hunting part that I think is really crucial is based off the movie Good Will Hunting. Do you remember it really well?
Love this movie. Yes.
So I bring this up because at the end of the movie, Matt Damon, who's the genius, right? And he could have any job he wants at any think tank and make millions of dollars, is sitting at a construction site with Ben Affleck at the end of the movie. And they're working construction. And Ben's like, so when are you going to take one of these like high paying jobs? And he's like, I'm not, we're going to raise our kids here and we're going to watch them play baseball at Foley Field. And, that's what I'm going to do. And Ben turns to him and he's just like, if I see you here in 20 years, I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm literally going to kill you. And he goes, well, what are you talking about? I owe it to myself. And he's like, no, you owe it to me. And you owe it to everyone else at this construction site that would give anything, I mean anything, to have what you have. You're sitting on a winning lottery ticket and you're too scared to cash it in. And for each and every one of your listeners, you're sitting on a winning lottery ticket. And here's the thing, not only is it really important for you to cash it in for yourself, but there are people waiting for you. There are people that are not able to show up until you show up. That until you start to do, what makes you come alive, they can't do their thing. And then when we think about like how we want to, we all want to change the world, the best way in which you can change the world is simply claiming who you are. As Viola Davis says, claim who you are instead of chase your worth. How many people are chasing their worth? And by simply claiming who you are and choosing to show up at this moment, you will have a massive impact on the world and you will give permission for so many other people to show up. So my question to your listeners are you ready to show up?
Are you ready to show up? Are you ready to cash in your lottery ticket? I love it. Jeff, I think it's beautiful. It gave me tingles, and I can't tell you how many times I wanted to do a little fist pump at your words. So it was wonderful. Thank you so much for taking your time to share with us here on Fresh Blood.
Thanks so much for having me. This was super fun.
I loved my talk with Jeff Harry. His perspective and advice is exactly what is needed. There were so many great nuggets of wisdom. It was really hard to pare down. His rise to success is incredibly inspiring. He took a job for $150 a week because it was fun. It was exactly what he wanted to be doing. It spoke to his why. And from there, he helped create a wildly successful organization that was built entirely on fun. They picked people because they were fun. They picked cities because they were fun. They made their decisions because they were fun. They created workshops by joking around with each other. They chose their marketing strategy based on what type of marketing do you most love to do? They asked their employees, what do you love most in your job? And then tried to increase the percentage of time spent doing that. By consistently doing these things in their work, they created an environment that allowed their people to easily get into that flow, into that zone of genius, which then had a ripple effect on everything they did. And their company thrived. I honestly can't think of a more enjoyable way to spend your working career. The future is where people are having the most fun. A key to Jeff's personal success was being willing to jump and create even when they didn't have the answers. They got into conferences and then they created the program. They were asked about potential programs that they did not have, but they said that they did, and then they went and created those programs. They walked through every door of opportunity that was presented to them. They said yes, and then figured it out. How many times have you turned away from an opportunity, whether it be because of fear or time or effort or whatever you might have told yourself? What if instead you approached it with that perspective of fun, of opportunity to create, of curiosity, and stepped forward with that mindset? What could you have accomplished? Jeff addressed a huge challenge in the workforce. I really appreciated this because toxicity in the workforce due to coworkers is one of the bigger reasons people will choose to leave their job. One toxic worker can completely infiltrate the company culture. Let's reiterate the stat that Jeff shared with us. $223 billion has been lost due to turnover because of toxic people in Fortune 500 companies. If you are a hiring manager, take a good look at your team and make sure you haven't been protecting that toxic employee that is actually costing you much more than you can even imagine. We have all dealt with toxic people in our life, and Jeff gave excellent advice here that can be used whether in the workplace or in your personal life. He advises to make sure that the rules apply to your toxic person. If you need to, organize around them. Enlist the help of others in your circle who are affected. Agree to back each other up either during meetings or gatherings. Together, you stop allowing this person to talk over other people, intimidate, or be rude to anyone else around them. You also confront the person directly. You make sure that you do not attack their character in any way, but you address the behavior and the impact it is having. When you did this, you made me feel this. Is that your intent? If you need to talk with a supervisor or family member, avoid complaining about the situation and instead point out the impact the behavior is having on you and the environment around all of you. Jeff also suggests dealing with what's going on inside of you. What is this person triggering in you? Take time to reflect on all the things that make you amazing. Find your confidence, and when you do, tell that toxic person not to disrespect you in that way. You do not have to let anything that this person says in. When you stand up for yourself, others will see that, and it gives them permission to stand up for themselves. Then this toxic person has a choice. They can either change their behavior or they can leave because they will no longer be able to be themselves. I'd also like to add that when people are acting out, rude, bullying, you can also try turning to them and saying, did you know that those who hurt others are really those that feel the worst and are hurting the most themselves? Are you having a tough time right now? Has it been a bad day? Is there something you need to talk about? I've seen this very simple moment transform many a situation. Lastly, as Jeff reminds us, even for listeners who feel they have tried everything, keep trying. By you not being silent, you will empower others to speak up as well. Remember, the Navy SEALs never pick a brilliant jerk, no matter how great they are, because it will destroy the team. This sentiment holds true for all groups. Avoid the jerks. No matter how brilliant they are never worth the misery they bring. Jeff reminds us of another key aspect of living a fulfilling life. Expectations are the thief of joy. When you are fixated on results, you put yourself through suffering. Life is about the journey. Fulfillment is in figuring out how to enjoy and learn from every step along the way while separating yourself from the outcome. Admittedly, it's not always easy to separate yourself from the outcome. So Jeff suggests that if you ever find you got tied to your results, give yourself compassion. Allow yourself to mourn what you couldn't do, and then write it down, fold it up into a paper airplane, and let it go. If you can let go of what could not be, you can let in what is or what can be. What Jeff believes to be the key to success is getting paid to be you. Get paid to be yourself. If you don't know what that is, if you're not sure of your purpose in life, your personal why, play can give you all the answers you need. What did you love to do as a kid? What made you feel excitement or inspiration? What about that activity made you happy? Follow that string of questioning and find where you're meant to be. Jeff also suggested if you're trying to come up with a new name for branding or a new idea of what to do, you can simply reach out to 3 to 5 of your closest friends and ask them, what value do I bring to your life? Why are we friends? What do I do for you? How do I make your life better? When have you seen me the most alive? When have you seen me the most present, the most engaged, the most playful, the most myself? Listen and write these things down. It will give you a ton of ideas moving forward. I loved what Jeff shared as his habitual everyday question. This was brilliant. He asks himself, how can today get any better than this? Then he does that. And he asks again, how can it get any better than this? Keep stacking your positive, priming moments, and that totally changes your day. As Jeff challenges, if someone says that they're having a bad day, did you have a bad day or did you have a bad moment? Once we have a bad moment, the human condition lends itself to continuing that rumination, which primes your mind to look for more bad moments throughout the day. But know that this is a choice. By shifting your focus back to how can it get any better than this, you will change your attitude, which will change your day, which will change your life. I'm going to leave you with Jeff's final thoughts, which align with the best advice I can give anyone who finds themselves struggling during this time. Remind yourself of how truly amazing you are. Think about all you have already learned, all your powerful experiences, all of your accomplishments, your ability to adapt, and everything that you have pulled off to get yourself here alive in this moment. You are sitting on a winning lottery ticket. There are people waiting for you to show up. They are waiting for you to do what you do that makes you come alive. Claim who you are. Choose to show up in the moment, and you will have a massive impact on this world, and you will give permission for others to do the same. Are you ready to show up? Until next time. Thank you for spending time with us on Fresh Blood. If you love this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, or giving us a review. I'm looking forward to connecting with you again on the next episode.